you know, how violent it is. I don't think it ever could be reflected in movies and things like that, of how the shock of it, you know, and stuff. You're not the same. John Carlson, and I live in northern New Jersey, small town of Basking Ridge. Been there most of my life. I work as a fireman. Been doing that for 30 years. Yeah, my dad was with linoleum mechanic. He put in stores and tile floors and linoleum floors and things like that. And he was a working man. And my mom worked also. We had it was just my brother and I, but we had an extended family with. We lived with my dad's mother and his sister also lived with us. So there were like six of us, and you know, that was our. I think that's how they did it back in those days. You know, they were little, they're all extended family. And he worked till he liked his beer, and he died young. He died when he was 59, and my mom died a year later. So that was a while ago. It was hard on because my mom, this was her second marriage, and her first marriage, her husband was killed in Normandy, World War II. My dad was in World War II. He was in North Africa. So she never said anything about me going off. But I know it was hard on her. And my brother would tell me that we'd send back the Purple Hearts and stuff like that, and she'd get these little brown packages and stuff, and that was difficult. So I tried to write home as much as I could, you know. You know, they wanted to notify the next of kin if anything happened to, you know, if you were wounded and stuff. And I told them that I said I wanted to be the ones to contact them. I could imagine her getting a phone call from some sergeant or lieutenant or something saying it and not knowing. She'd probably rather hear it from me. So that was one of the things. So it was hard on my mom. I had 1 year of college, and I flunked out my first year, and so I wasn't really doing much, and I was trying to get back into another school, and I was working part time, and the draft notice came, and that was about it. I was drafted in 1966. We were all brought up because of that. My dad being in the service, and he was never a big, God and country of that. He never, you know, but I just felt it was an obligation. They called me, and I was going to go. The one story was we going down to the induction center and stuff like that, and there was a big room, and they said, okay, line up here, and they said, we have somebody from the Marines who wants to talk to you, and they brought in a Marine there, and he said, okay, John, this is your chance to be a Marine, and at that time that was probably the last thing in the world that I wanted, step over this. So anybody who wants to be a Marine, step over the line. Well, nobody step over the line, of course. So he said, okay, you, and you. And I always think, you know, what happened if I always stepped over that line? Fort Hood, Texas. Um, we were sent down to Fort Dix, and we spent a few days down in Fort Dix. And this is another thing. Uh, they had us standing in formation in the rain down at Fort Dix, and I ended up with pneumonia. So they sent me to the hospital, and I was in the hospital for over a week and a half, I guess, down at Fort Dix. And one of the guys even died next to me. He was packed in ice because his fever was so high. So that was, and then I went back to the company, and by that time, all the guys, and I had gone in with a guy who I went to high school with too. Well, he has already been gone. They sent him out, And it turns out he ended up being a cook and never left the United States. So this is another one of those. I wonder what would happen if I hadn't been caught pneumonia and sent to the. So there's always another. If I went left or if I went right. So I went there, and after I got that, and they said, get on the plane, and they sent us down to Texas. They flew into some small Air Force base. No, some landing strip or something in the middle of the night. Ended up coming to Fort Hood, 12 o'clock at 1 o'clock in the morning. Something like hot, dusty. Barracks were old. Some were, a little bit younger. And I wasn't really that much older, but I had a year in college and stuff, so I was fairly used to being away from home. Some weren't. We had guys. The Fort Hood itself had never been to Texas before, so that's a whole different. That was, but a lot of different people. You just, and I had never been really in that situation. I could never figure out the guys. They'd have butt cans all over the barracks and stuff like that. But you had to keep them clean. You could never put the butts in a butt can. Just had to field strip them and put them out. Put them outside. So you had to keep everything clean. But and one day one of the sergeants, picked up a butt, and so he saw somebody throw it down. He made the guy dig a 6x6 underneath the barracks. And I tell you, that poor guy using a small entrenching tool, and he's digging this thing to bury the butt, and then he put the butt in there, and then he had to fill up the hole. We had one guy who wanted to get out of the service. He wasn't ready to stay. He jumped out of the second floor barrack. I don't know why he thought the second floor. It was like a 15-foot drop. I don't know why. He's going to hurt himself. But a few of the guys who I got, they took me home, which was really pretty nice. There was a lot of Texas boys, so they all went home for weekends or went, like Tommy Foley had to go to Temple, which is about 5 minutes away. Had chicken fried steak and stuff like this with gravy. Never had grits and things like that, which I had never eaten. I was in with Alan and Foley, and we were all in the same barracks, and they were just nice guys. They all did different, obviously different personalities, but no, but it's. I think one of the nicest things is everybody's there are regular people. They're not, you walk into their house and you can sit down, and they're just really nice people. And we've said that all along, over 40 years, and the guys are really, just regular nice people. Well, once you were in it, you knew you were drafted. You knew you probably would end up there anyway. You knew that. One of the first things too is when we got the first Fort Hood, we saw all these tanks and stuff. They had the tank, yellow, and I was going, "Hey, that's great! I won't have to walk. That's a pretty good thing. I can ride these tanks." And then we started. Then we turned the corner and went down the thing. We saw all these blue flags with crossed rifles, and something's up here. So we knew we were the grunts, and so you got your mindset, and they said, okay, well, let's get this done. And going through the training, it was some of the things were kind of funny. We had they used one day they used deuce and a halves to simulate helicopter landings, and they dropped in the deuce and a halves, and you had to exit the deuce and a half. And being in Texas and digging in that soil and being out, you'd be out in a week out there, and digging in and with all the animals and things like that. And it was my mindset was, let's go, do it, And then it got when we learned we were going with the boat and stuff like. Once we got on the boat there, it was okay, let's go and get this thing done, and let's, you know, or everybody come back, take care of your buddy, and let's get it done. We're ready. We're ready to go, and because I think we stayed together for a year. I think that was one of the things, the good thing. We stayed together for a year. We trained together for a year. We got to know, and we had some older NCOs, which were good guys. Uh, and of course, when Lieutenant Wendover came over, who was young, but he was just a good leader, good leader. And we had some of the older NCOs who were good, which I think helped us. And of course, when First Sergeant Rodriguez came in, which was much later, but so that really helped. So you knew. Well, we were in the first of the 46, and then they moved over to A Company, the first of the 6. So a lot of the guys went over. So I knew guys in the first of 46, but most of the guys I knew in the first. So you were comfortable with them because you were together for that long. We were talking about that today with the guys that are replacements. It was very difficult for the replacements to come in who didn't know us, who didn't know they were only in the Army for 8 weeks, the basic, and then 8 more weeks, and then they were sent. So it was hard. And I was saying to Buddy, and I was saying it was very difficult because I know myself. I didn't get close to any of the new replacements because they were going to be gone. You didn't know how long they were there. So that was hard. Well, I'd never been on a boat before, and I was sick for about 3 days out. And my job was to clean the gangways of guys throwing up, and I was one of the guys throwing up. Don Kaiser always tells the story of us. We're sitting at the table eating on the upshore, and the boat's going back and forth, going like this. And they had the porthole was open, and some of the water was coming in. Well, of course, I get sick, of course, at the table. And another time we were out on the deck, and you line up on the deck, and if you get in front of the bow, and the wind is coming this way, and you throw up, and you hit all the guys, and they all get mad at you. But ran out of water about 3 days out of Okinawa. You see 5,000 guys, naked guys on the deck when it started. A little rain shower came by. We had one guy jump off. The boat. I don't know. He heard he was 500 miles from Hawaii and he was going to make it. So he jumps off. We're going, man, you got a better chance going to Vietnam. And there was a little, but that was a lot of got playing cards. It was boring. Playing cards, reading book, hanging out in the bunks. We were down in a hole, and it was hot down in those bunks. It was really strange because uh, you didn't know what to expect, and they brought us down in an LST and wanted us to, and we landed, and Westmoreland was there, and we were supposed to march out. I don't know how, the LST, there was about a foot of water in the bottom of this LST. And they flipped down the front of the LST, and we were supposed to march out on line, and that was, but ended up there. But you could just see the country was the greens were green, and there was smoke in the distance, and you saw puffs of smoke, and then you just saw a lot of activity of the GIs and the trucks and things. And I knew it was bad because they were bringing us to, I guess we were going to Baldy, and they got us on the deuce and a halfs, and we're riding on the deuce and a half, and this mama son comes out from her hooch and turns her back to us and proceeds to do her business there on the rice paddy dike, and I'm going, I know we're in trouble now, this is a whole different building, a whole different world, not knowing who your friend is, not knowing who's shooting at you, not who, you just didn't know. Very, the sights were different, the smells. I think we just ran uh, patrols, out from the base camp, around, and I think they probably just wanted us to get acclimated to carrying that pack, because Texas was hot. It was one of that maybe it acclimated us to the weather, but there was just a different type of hot. And then we were carrying a lot. You always carried a lot in your pack, and they, uh, uh, the rations, and you carried the extra ammo. And I think that was it. In Texas, we didn't carry in that ammo. Now we were carrying hundreds of rounds of machine gun. I had machine gun squad, so I had the two machine guns. So everybody always carried extra bandoliers of machine gun ammo, and they wanted us to carry them in the metal containers, But that was very difficult. You had to carry that, and your food, and you carried a blanket and extra water. They only give us those small canteens, and that was different. Then I had a lot of water, so I think they did that to acclimate us to carrying all this stuff and to find out the area was. It wasn't too rugged. There was a lot of brush, not real jungle stuff, you know. But that was another thing we were lucky with. We had guys who were hunters, and a lot of guys from Texas who hunted, who had been in the bush. I'd never been, you know. Oh, Brennan was the best. Great, good leader, good, very knowledgeable. He took care of us. I think his focus was on the men. He was, he did it by the book. He was tough. We were talking about it. He was a disciplinarian, but from his tour before, he was a good guy, very good leader. Intelligent, good guy. And but you were just so tired from the day, but you had to pull guard duty in the night if you were in the, so that was difficult. Sleep. You learned to catch sleep when you could. I always tell the story of being in the paddies all day, and you're wet and you're tired and you're going through the hills, and then we go into a night logger usually on a hill, and you're going up the hill, and it was just that the degree temperature. One of the nights was one of the coldest nights I ever was. It was so cold, going from that 100-degree and sweating, and we go up the hill. We got in there late, and we were digging, and the hill was nothing but this rock, and it was so cold. But it was from being wet on a day and the sweat and stuff. But it just got really, really cold, and so yeah, that was hard. I'm sure it was every bit of 60 pounds of what you carried on your back, and it was hot. He pushed us during the day. And at night you were up, you had to pull, you had to dig a hole, you had to set up your trip flares, you had, set up your claymores, fields of fire. I had to make sure the guys got, if we had very important to get mail out to the guys, if we got rations, and I had to make sure those guys got that, and if they had enough ammo, and, you learn to, you know, take care of yourself, and you take care of the guys with you too, because that's you depended. We found we were working more as a unit now, but you're also depending upon the guys. They had to do their job also, But I just felt the machine gunners that I had, those they were so good that they just made my job easy. The monsoon season was very, very difficult. For everybody, it was. You couldn't keep anything dry. You're always wet. We never wore underwear. The underwear was gone. Uh, You try to keep dry socks and things like that. Everything was wet. You tried not to, you tried to keep the guys who smoked and stuff carried inside their helmet. And, it was hard moving, because and your feet were always wet. You were always wet. But that was that was Brennan. Brennan he was aggressive. He was out there because Charlie was out there, and Charlie knew you didn't like to be out there, and that's where he was, and that's we went out to get him, and that's the type of commander he was, and that's what we did. So, but it was just very difficult. I'm not saying any different from any other soldiers, but I think that was the toughest thing. And it was every day. It wasn't, there was no timeout. I want to get dry now. It was every day. You dig the hole, you go, you send out your patrols, you're out in the patrols, it's raining, it's wet, mud up here, the leeches were, all over the place. And it was every day, and then at nighttime come, it get black, you're wet, you're tired, you couldn't, you might use a heat tab or maybe open up a claymore and heat up your C rations, which you weren't supposed to do, but you wanted some hot beans and franks or something. And every night you got to dig your hole. You got to set up your machine guns. You got to make sure you got enough water. Taking your malaria pills, the guys. So, it was every night, and you got into that routine. You got in that okay, set up, the hooch, or who's going to dig the holes, who's digging the holes. Okay, he wants a machine gun here. He wants a machine gun here. You're going to stay here. Okay, but everything that was you got into that. But it wasn't easy. It wasn't, you did it for weeks. Really, you did it for weeks. It was crazy. We always say Charlie owned the night, And one night we had gone out, and I set up my squad, and you try to set it up in a pre-position. You look on the map, and you go and you coordinate with the mortar platoon. You say, I'm going to be here and here, and you got to set up with them, and you got to set up with the guys, the holes on either side of you. We're going out at such a time, so we don't want, if we come back in, to coordinate with them because we don't want any. And then we get to the pre-position, and I try to, because I don't want to tell them where the ambush is going to be. I want to move in there later at night, but I want to check it out beforehand. If you see a trail, you think that it's a pretty good trail, it's been worn, maybe we can catch something. Well, one night we went through, and we were in a position, and I was going to move the guys into the ambush position, and it happened we were in a burnout hooch, and we're about ready to go, and it's dark and it's quiet, and you learn, sound really travels at night. You have to uh, be quiet, and you're trying to keep the weapons from making noise and stuff. I'm ready to move the guys out, and all of a sudden this gook jumps out of the bushes and he's screaming, and I'm going, this is it, I mean, and he's screaming at me. So, and I talking to Fegley the other day, and he said, yeah, Chunk, I was going to shoot him. He said, yeah, but you grabbed him. I grabbed the guy, and I took my K-bar, and I had it at this guy's throat. He wouldn't stop screaming. And I was about, all of a sudden, his whole family, the mama son comes out, the kids come out, the grandma comes out, all of the bushes. And I guess what happened was the burnout hooch that where we were staying in was their hooch, and they had come back. They had gotten burned out a couple of days, and they had come back to pick out their belongings, whatever they could find, whatever was there, dishes or whatever, and that's what he was saying. And well, I got the situation calmed down, but I think in the ambush is blown. If anybody over miles must have heard this guy screaming. We had this whole family, and I know the ambush is blown, but I'm worried about now. Now I got to get the guys back to our perimeter, and I'm hoping that the guys beforehand. I hope that works. So, well, we made it back to the perimeter, and everybody's okay. And I went back to, and it wasn't Captain Brennan. I won't mention his name. And I said, okay, these are the civilians we got. I don't know what you want to do with them. He goes, okay, go back out. And I said, Captain, the ambush is blown. Where do you want me to go? You want me to go back to the same place that I'm going to get, you know? He goes, get your ass out there. Which I didn't think was a good idea. So I had a problem with that. Yeah, we did go. We didn't go far, but we didn't go to our ambush. We didn't go at our ambush site. We got out of the way of everything, but you know, I thought that was a bad move on his part. We brought back these. It was a farmer with his family who was scared, who got burned out, and he was lucky to be alive. He was just trying to save some of his possessions, The civilians were there, were just hanging on by their fingernails, but you didn't know. They put us in a position of free fire zones and no fire zones. Sometimes they were telling us. I can remember just before TET when Armand got hit. Uh, that was a no fire zone. We weren't supposed to shoot anybody, but they were shooting at us, and it was that made it hard on the civilians. We'd go, and especially after somebody got hurt. If somebody got killed the night before or hurt, or because of a booby trap, your blood was up. You didn't know if they were using their supplies, if they were sleeping there, or if they, if, we checked for weapons and stuff like that, and there were holes all over the place. Stick them in the wells. So you felt for the civilians it was really tough. And of course, the little kids and things, just break your heart. But incredible. They did some incredible things. Riding them was a sheer joy after being with the wind, and you're up there and you got to be they you hung out the side of the thing, and seeing all the different colored greens, and just flying by. Uh, that was it wasn't good to see tracers coming at you, but uh, but that was really something coming down. But that was very difficult because you were they had you, and I don't blame them really. But we go on a couple of these LZs, and if they started receiving rounds, they started pushing you out, and you were 20 feet off the ground with this 70 pounds on your back. Conlon, the one machine gunner, geez, he ended up in a rice paddy, and he was up to his chin in mud from it. And the door gunner was just pushing him out, and Carlson had the weapon, and we ended up in the mud up to here. Boy, we were lucky at that. But they wanted to get out there too. They were receiving rounds. They knew they were getting shot at too. They wanted to so they come in real quick, and they take it off. But the medics and the aircraft those guys were something else. That took a lot of guts to come in. we did have, snipers and stuff like that. We lost the one. Sergeant Kaler was killed. Uh, we had a few guys, I think, hurt before that, but mostly snipers, you know, pot shots and stuff like that. And then after a while, they couldn't. They were worse shot than I am. We did some aerial assaults and stuff like that, but we didn't have any hot LCs until after that. But then after that, after TET, we were pretty busy. Yeah, there was a sense of felt like there was a sense of urgency. There was, things were things were going to light up. Because Pat Armand got hurt, and they seemed to be, and I think it was more VC than NBA at that time. I think we were doing that, and they were, they were getting more aggressive because they were starting to come up. And uh, the one night when Pat got hit, we were throwing hand grenades back and forth, and they were getting pretty, they were getting pretty bold. I don't think they, but now I think they were starting to head in a different direction. My friend TJ and I were, they came out just before that, and they sent us an R&R. They said, hey, we have two guys going on R. Where do you want to go to? You're supposed to go to Taipei. I had no idea where Taipei, Taiwan was. And I said, you want to go? He says, all right, let's go. So we went, ended up in Taipei with a bunch of Marines. And everybody was saying, oh, this is TET. This is TET. I didn't know. We didn't know what TET was. Chinese New Year. So we got back. Forget when we got back. I don't know, third or fourth. Found out what TET was about. Wild. It was geared up, hurry up and wait. Same army stuff. I guess they had Brennan got us received his orders, and I remember, um, that's what the army does. It's hurry up, gear up, then wait, and you wait. You're really not. You know you're going somewhere, but you don't know. I don't think. At least I didn't think we were going to go to Da Nang, and that was, and it was, gee, that's another. It was a night move, uh, getting up there and moving it. Getting us uh, flying in up there and getting us out. And then that guy, there was another. See, that's another thing. I always think about that too. We get up there and it's the middle of the night. The Marines have no idea. They're shooting at us. I'm not really sure of the times because I can't. I don't. But it was pretty late at night. Pretty late. It was one of those things Brennan always tried to get, but since this was such a off the wall move, for such a big company movement like that. I don't think he could have. He got in there much later than he wanted to because the civilians are all DD, Buku VC, Buku VC. The sun's out, beautiful day. We're in this rice paddy. The rice paddy's pretty dry. The rice paddy's only, I don't know, about 12 inches high. And I remember laying there, and we're right at the end of the airfield. Not bad, We're okay here. We're out in the open. We're not in the. That was one thing. We were out in the open with a big wide open rice paddy, and by like the cemetery there. So that wasn't good. But then when and then then that's another. You hurry up and wait, to get orders, get the screws set up, because I guess obviously they had the other companies, where they were moving. And once they got the orders, we moved out on the line. First, but they had second and third platoon. I think it was second on the left and third platoon. And they had us in the back, in the first platoon. And I think Don's third platoon. Yeah, he was on the right. Yeah, and all the boys from second platoon. Yeah, and we were behind them. Those were the guys who caught most of the fire. Then all of a sudden, we saw puffs of mortar rounds and hitting, and then you heard me drop to the rice paddy, and I'm going, and this, like I said, the rice is only about 12 inches high, and then all these bullets going over your head. You can hear them click. They're so close because they break the. I found out later they break the, and they make these snaps, and they're just so close, and you duck your head, and there's just no, and we didn't, like I said, we were in the back, so we were still catching mostly small arms fire and stuff, but you could see the mortar rounds going off, a lot of mortar rounds to the left and right, and then it happened. Then things start to get chaotic. So and so's hit. So and so's hit. Then that's when you're medic. You gotta need a medic. Need a medic. I remember Scholl's hit. Pull back. That's when Captain says pull back. So we started pulling back. I ended up and I don't know. I ended up on this in this right, and there was a dead VC there. He lost half his head, and I'm laying next to this guy, and I'm going, how the hell did he get here? I remember seeing Donnie Kaiser come back in. I remember bringing Gonzalez in. I know he died later on, but he was a good sergeant. He was one of the NCOs. He was a very veteran sergeant. He was a good guy. He took care of him. And one guy was shot through they made us wear these the flak jackets, which is, it just wore you down. One guy got shot right through the flak jacket. They were pretty close to go through that flak jacket. It'd be Polino. I believe it was Polino. So we brought guys back, and then we returned some fire. We saw a lot of, and it's the first time really you never saw, you didn't really even see, even when in the jungle, you didn't really see who you were shooting at. You might see gun flashes and things like that. It's always pretty close. But that was the first time I'd actually seen the enemy, the green, the pit helmet and the green, and actually, running toward you. A lot of, a lot of wounded, a lot of, so you didn't dwell on that too much. You sort of just did, what, this guy's hurt bad. This guy, we get him in, this, and then the chopper started to come in, and then I got wounded. It hit off the cemetery, the tombstone. I must have hit me in the arm, knocked me down. Oh, damn. So Marine Corps medic. And where the heck did this guy come from? Found out later, I guess. But he comes in, past minutes, he says, you want to stay or you want to go? I said, well, I'm not feeling too bad now. I said, I'll stay. He says, okay. So, and then we went about our business. We were, we got still taking some fire. The worst sight was Daniel Dinky. He was in second platoon. And all we saw really, when we were in the cemetery, we saw this guy rise out of the mud. And you didn't know, he was so covered in mud, you didn't know who it was. You didn't know, and he just was walking toward you. And I know, I have my doubts. I hope to God I didn't hit him. Because right then, it's if you see a target, you were shooting at it. If you saw it, because they were running along the rice paddies and stuff like that, and you could, this guy just raised up. Another split-second decision. You have to make a split-second decision whether that farmer, I had that farmer around the neck. Oh, why I didn't pull the trigger? All these split-second decisions that 40 years later you're still wondering why. You're dwelling on it. And this poor guy comes in, and I know he went down a couple times because he was shot. And then they said, hold your fire, it's Dinky. And that poor guy, just terrible. And then there was some terrible, brought in Brennan, and I wasn't feeling so hot at that time, and Brennan come in, and he was shot up in the hip and the butt there. I helped him on the chopper, and I got on the chopper with him, and they choppered me out. The Marines had the old helicopters with the door on the one side, and we're waiting for this, and it came in this way, and it had to turn around, and it spun its rotor right over the top. I thought I was going to get killed by the Marines here, with this rotor coming over, but he had to swing it around so the open door was to our side so we could load up. So I got Brandon up and got him in, and landed at the hospital there and got off. And we walked in. And I remember seeing just to the left of the door, just a huge pile of helmets and M16s and rucksacks and just a huge pile. And I'm going, oh my God. Well, that's always, that it doesn't hit you until later that you're to see just terrible wounds. So one fella, well, of course Gonzalez had that head wound, and he was not in good shape. And I remember Graves. He had a terrible wound to his left. It looked like somebody just sliced it. I don't know if that was from part of somebody used a bayonet. I don't know. I never talked to him about that, but that was, it just looked like somebody just, you get mad because you lose, those guys, you see those guys with terrible wounds, and you get mad. At least I did. I got mad. You're young and dumb, and you're a human. You can, you can die. These guys, they were dying to her. They were. That was hard. It's later on when at least for me, at that time it was, wow, look at that guy, man. He's bad. Boy, he's bad. I hope he's okay. And Alan was just he's a good old Southern boy. He grew up in the woods, and he know how to you know take you through the woods and the boonies and stuff, and he was just very good. He's just like a natural, and that's why he did it all the time. I remember they had me at a point one time, and I think I did it for about an hour. I didn't do too well at it, but he was just really good. He had that shotgun, and one day we're walking in some pretty heavy stuff, and he had the shotgun over his shoulder. He took that shotgun, and there was these big squirrels they had. He hit that squirrel, and it fell to the ground. He got it and put it in his bag. I saw him later on. He had taken the tail off of that squirrel and put it on the back of his helmet. I said, Alan, what are you going to do? What are you going to do with the rest of that squirrel? And he said, well, I was going to cook it up and eat it. But he was just really good. He could can't say enough about him. So he just knew where to go. He was very aggressive, and he did his job well. He just did his job well. That was a tough day. 352 was a tough. That was a day that was just like like the movies of taking this hill, uh, and Sergeant McCleery came up, and we were in the middle, and I walked point. I had it. He came over and said, "Who are you gonna?" And I said, "Okay, I'll go up." And we started going up the hill, but before the Marines had come in, and this was one of the first. Those F4 Phantoms came in and just blew the top of this hill, and you could see the pilots. They were hundreds of feet off the ground, just screaming. And we caught some fire right away. We started going up the hill on line. Started fire away. I saw this guy. I shot one to the left. He was shooting at I don't know. It was a lucky shot. I think we got up. Mac took off. I mean, he ran up that hill. Couldn't. Tough. They were. To my right was okay. I found out later. Uh, Colin was on R&R. He was using our machine gunner, but Boogerman had the machine gun with Fagley. So we started to go up. Mac takes off. I think he went into, there's a ditch to the right. But we kept up going up the top of the hill. We made it to the top of the hill. We were catching some fire. I think it was on both sides. It was okay. We came up. We came down, and it was a shell crater, and it was a big rock. Mac, he went. I grabbed him. I said, "Get back! You're going too far." So he went back to the rest of the platoon to the right, and I had Brueggemann set up the machine gun by this rock, and then I said, "We better pull back." We got into shell crater, and all of a sudden there was this um, the Air Force. I think it was an Air Force FO who was spotting. He came up and joined us in this crater, and we're looking, and we were at the top of the hill, and it was all the tree line was probably, I don't know, 25, 30 yards away, and all of a sudden out of the tree line, I thought it was an RPG, but some of the guys said it was a recoilless rifle, and it tunneled right at the top of the hill. It hit back at the shell crater where we were at. The Air Force FO. I never knew his name, but he was killed right away. And Brueggemann got hit, got knocked back. Fagley, I didn't get in. I can't. And you wonder. That's another that goes on. Why me? Here is this thing, and it killed one guy, wounded two others. Um, it knocked me down, and Carter. Remember Carter? And he got hit in the leg, and I saw him. I went and bandaged him up. Brueggemann and Fagley were hit also. I don't know who brought them back, but the Air Force guy was. But they were still. There was a lot of. They were dug in. There were trenches and spider holes and stuff, and we were going around to the spider holes. But we there wasn't no mortar fire, but there was a lot of small arms fire and stuff. And then um, but I remember, jeez, redheaded fella, Casey, Wayne Casey. How you doing, Casey? He smiled because he got hit in the hand. It was like $1 million wound, and he knew he was going. He was going home. I said, "Good luck to you." And McCleery came back, and he had. I think he got shot in the arm twice. With pollen. It was left arm. But that was a long day. That was one of those days. It's just that that. I don't know what happened. I was right in the middle, but nothing touched me. I don't know why. But it was a day. Those old Sunday morning Marine movies and stuff of going up that hill, and it was just like that. It was exactly like that. It was an amazing day. And like I said, the guys there, they're just regular people. They're not, and you could go into their homes, and I just love them dearly. I can't say enough about them. They're just regular people who just did their job. There were no heroes. I don't think any of them will say they're a hero. It's the guys who died. How about I can't say enough about it. They're just regular. That's why I keep going um, to these, the get-togethers and stuff like that. They support me, I support them, and we support each other in our, you know, we have different lifestyles and things like that. But there's just down to people who just did their job, and they weren't. There was some special. We had some special. Alan was some special. First Sergeant Rodriguez, Captain Brennan, Wendover. Um, we had some special people. I think they're all, but I'm just thank you.